Fundamentally, the language of biology or the language of physics or chemistry is not the language of humans. It's a completely different set of data and modalities.
I think even the research teams, the product teams, the boundaries are getting more blurred in some sense before due to this AI's fast-moving nature.
During COVID-19, they called me and they asked me how many occurrences I will have next week. And my answer is that if I know that I'm not going to be here, I will be in Wall Street. I mean, what's important, and then human intuition is first, then just model, because you know already the answer than AI.
I am excited for the second panel because we had the executive Rockstars, and today here for the second panel we have the research Rockstars. So very excited. And you know, the first session was really about how we scale AI in the real world, and I think this discussion is really about the genesis, right? The front end and all the exciting innovations and the early stage ideas that actually become technologies that the big companies and enterprises depend on. So June and I have actually introduced ourselves from the first panel. So Ava and Chansoo, if you could kindly introduce yourselves, that would be great.
Yeah, so my name is Ava Amini. I'm a principal researcher at Microsoft in our research division, and I specifically focus on developing frontier AI for scientific discovery, particularly in the life sciences. And so continuing on several of the themes that were brought up in the earlier session about, you know, what is the potential of AI to make impact in drug discovery, in pharmaceuticals, in engineering and energy and industry, right? You can all think about these sectors as falling into this paradigm of discovery-based work. And so we think very carefully from the bottom up of how and where we can capitalize on existing models and AI advancements, but also where new innovation needs to be made, because fundamentally the language of biology or the language of physics or chemistry is not the language of humans, right? It's not English or any other spoken language. It's a completely different set of data and modalities. And so thinking about how we can make these methods native in those languages too is really kind of where we're pushing the frontier of research here.
My name is Chansoo Kim, and actually it is my honor to be here. I have been here like at 19 or like 20 years ago as a student here. And I haven't come to, visit Boston frequently after that. And 2 years ago, I had a chance to walk people here. So, at that time, I witnessed that my dormitory was removed because of this all AI, like invigorating energy. But I think this positive energy actually brought me here, including you. So, first, I just want to say thank you. And what my team is doing is like a kind of fundamentals of, mathematically fundamentals of AI. It includes like decentralization of AI. And second stuff is that the optimization AI. And third thing is AI risk or ethics management. So I think my experience could be helpful for you. And I also have some experience with the industry, especially paper industry. And I have been working in like a Korean CDC to respond to a COVID-19 mitigation strategy using AI. So I hope to share this kind of experience with you here. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this is indeed going to be a very interesting panel. And I think research and enterprise sometimes have a love-hate relationship, right? So there's a gap between what's so brilliant with research and what's actually practical in business, right? What do you think are the barriers that actually prevent AI research from becoming something that's useful or deployed in the real world? Is it cultural barriers? Is it technical? Is it organizational? What would you say it is?
So, fundamentally, I think the two are intertwined, especially in the context of someone like Microsoft, right? Microsoft is obviously a huge technology enterprise, and yet we have this huge research arm as well, because our mission is to kind of safeguard and define the future of the enterprise by pushing the boundaries technically and scientifically from research innovation. And so I think, a lot of people perhaps externally think of research as solely this academic endeavor, whereas research to me is really all about innovation. And so I think there's that cultural disconnect between what research really is. But at the same time, right, in something as open as the sciences and the natural sciences, still many of our AI innovations are still at that very early stage in terms of being so far many fundamental research pursuits. And now we're kind of at this nexus where we're thinking about bringing them to enterprises, to serving customers and things like that. And honestly, it's a big growing moment for us as a team and as a company like Microsoft in kind of figuring out what that model is going to be. So there are absolutely kind of some historical barriers there that I think once we break them can make for really great opportunities for impact.
I think these days, research and products are more kind of intertwined than ever, actually, because a lot of AI needs advanced research, and also the successful company need to shorten the cycle from research to production as much as they can, actually. So I think even the research teams, the product teams, the boundaries are getting more blurred in some sense than before due to this AI's fast-moving nature. So I think the interaction between research and the product and the more enterprise adoption is gonna be even more important than ever.
Saying that there's going to be more marriages, more integration between research and enterprise. Okay.
And I think the barrier is itself is not kind of the lack of the breakthrough, but I think it is the lack of the alignment. I mean, researchers or professors like us try to optimize generality and kind of elegance, and then we are very happy to see some kind of beautiful formula and beautiful model, but the entrepreneur or enterprise people use different language. They try to optimize costs. They try to maximize the benefits. So our language is somewhat different. So in this case, as they point out, we need to discuss more and we need to align to each other. So I think that is required. And one more thing is that we need to be more humorous.
Humorous?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it actually helps us to discuss more. So, I think that's the problem. And then the other one, the conversation and discussion should be one a good approach to discuss. I mean, they work each other. So.
Yes, I mean, I think humor. If AI can generate that, there will be collective genius and people will be happier, maybe, perhaps. But it's really a wild, wild west, I would say, in the world of AI, right? Everything is kind of unpredictable, messy, and even the expectations and the requirements are changing every day. So in a world like that, how do you actually make your work still reliable, something that is deployable by enterprise when you actually have to scale it?
Your question actually reminds me of my experience with people in a president office in Korea and as well as the Korean CDC. During COVID-19, they called me and they asked me, how many occurrences are we have next week? And my answer is that if I know that I'm not going to be here, I will be in Wall Street. And then they always, so my answer is that I can give you the kind of maneuver to reduce 10% less occurrences than this week for upcoming week. So it's going to be to reduce the occurrence, maybe applying AI, we just generate this kind of social distancing policy to have you only 4 people and you needed to go back home at 9 o'clock p.m. I'm sorry. And in this case, the way that I persuaded these guys that I gave them 3 things. First thing is a kind of explicit causality, because I don't want to, for them to like obsess the numbers, but I asked them to think about the differences between two social distancing policies. That's first thing. And second is that I tried to calibrate the AI model continuously. That means it does not have any kind of stable result. So it is changing always, and then AI actually bears the not unique solution. It gives us the many solutions. So in this case, we need to think about the field knowledge. And third thing I think is that we should design our AI, based on the governance, so good governance. So I think these three can help us to make AI more reliable.
Two points that I'd like to bring up on this. One is coming back to the same theme of integration of research and enterprise. In both scientific research and engineering at enterprise grade, right, there are high standards of rigor and technical quality and reproducibility. And that lens, I think, is super important, regardless of where in the stack the research or engineering work falls, right, maintaining that level of standard. The second point, I think, is feedback, and feedback from real world data. So once you deploy a model, how are users interacting with it? What signal can you get? And how can you use those data points to improve the models in turn? And particularly in something like drug discovery, this is super important, because if now you're thinking about an AI that's interfacing with scientists in a pharma company, right, who are doing experiments, they're getting new data, and how is that going to be fed back into the model to improve it? So thinking about this lens of, can we kind of induce this sort of lifelong learning or learning from feedback, and cycles like this can be also a really important way to enhance the reliability and robustness.
As you said, in this wild west of AI, I think the research even plays a more important role. As fundamental, the nature of research is exploring kind of a very different paradigm in a new way, and so it creates a quite new opportunity. If you look at, for example, like OpenAI team, their original team, the team was more kind of research kind of organization. Then all of a sudden, their research outcome becomes one of the most successful product. Actually, they probably didn't even imagine, but I think that kind of patterns will, in some sense, I think can continue, because there are so many also unsolved issues in AI. All these unsolved problems need very fundamental research and rigor. It needs rigor, not like random direction, actually. And just the enterprise company, without kind of research aspect, they are just focusing on the kind of, let's say, just the product engineering. They don't have a kind of they cannot explore those directions. Then they will not be able to come up with this kind of new paradigm of product, actually. So I think research will. I'm not saying researchers should be always a product. I'm not saying the research has its own very important role of exploring new direction. It doesn't always have to be like enterprise product. Sure. But the nature of AI makes the research also has a huge kind of connection to the product.
I feel like because of this kind of new climate, this area, MIT and Harvard and Kendall Square, is going to be even more in demand in some ways, right? So that's just my kind of thought. But Bobby was saying that AI can't really replace humans or jobs, although there are many enterprises that don't quite think like that. But really, AI is reshaping how people work, how we make decisions, how we collaborate. So as you are working on these things that can be deployed at scale, how do you make sure that at the center are the human context, the accountability, and all of that kind of humanness that provides the right direction?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think the number one thing in my mind is, what is the use case of this system? What problems or questions does it solve? And how will the end user interface with the system for what use cases, right? I always think a model is not a product, right? A product is a whole suite of things. It's a system, it's an experience. And so it's not sufficient to just go out and build a model, right? If you really want to translate and make an impact, you have to put the human first and think about what is their experience going to be in that lens of a bigger system or a larger product.
That is a really good question. And I believe, of course, people change their behavior according to AI, but I think AI can be shaped according to a human's behavior and human's direction. When you try to use ChatGPT, it follows your prompt. When you ask some kind of a positive question, it tries to, some sense, flatter you, because the LLM actually has a design to follow the direction of data. That's a data direction is some kind of a mathematical word, but it tries to align with your direction. So in this case, we feel that the AI tries to shape itself according to human. And also there is one kind of example of the alignment. You just to make your, when you drive your car and then you just put your handle a direct way. And if your car is not moving direct, you should go to the mechanics and then you ask them align your wheels. So right now, to fit your AI with the current risk or a low risk or current ethics, we apply alignment technique to change AI. So what we called, we should feed the humans a direction or humans a criteria to the AI. So I think this kind of interaction is important for us to apply to AI.
And in terms of making this marriage work between enterprise and research, because it is indeed challenging, right? How do you have a secret recipe, Ava? I think both sides can definitely learn a lot from each other and benefit, but how do we kind of make that happen?
It's not sometimes easy, actually, to kind of combine this research and let's say product, because research has its own kind of goal, and let's say the product team has its engineering team has its own kind of mission actually there. I think one good example is, let's say I mentioned about the NVIDIA CUDA, but the original idea of CUDA actually came from the Stanford's PhD's work. The ion box kind of his work actually became the cornerstone of the CUDA. And what NVIDIA did at the time was that they just, when you talk to the NVIDIA people, they said the CUDA, it's really hard that CUDA came from the in-house actually, because they were fixated on their own thinking about how the GPU architecture should work out. But the CUDA idea actually came from the outside, and it's from the research university side. But the good thing that NVIDIA did was to integrate that idea very aggressively, very quickly, and also very patiently, actually. So I think it requires some will and belief of the top lead down to all the manager, the entire organization, to when they try to more openly integrate a research idea into the production. It's quite needs a lot of culture thing actually.
Just that I agree that the culture piece is super important, and if I had the secret recipe, I would either be using it myself or sharing it here. No, but it's true, because I think, especially in a context, right, something like Microsoft is a huge, huge company, and you really need that vertical, kind of integration, and also a cultural shift from a lens of someone like me who's a researcher to say, I want to see this through end to end, and bring this, to life as a product, as an enterprise grade offering. And I think that, again, coming back to the first question about research versus enterprise and how these two intersect with each other or diverge, I think sometimes a lot of people can think that research is purely academic, but that's the furthest thing from the truth. As June had mentioned in one reply, it's really about innovating the technology. And so having that shift in mindset of the work I'm doing is about innovating technology, it's not about publishing papers or being in the academy or things like this. Research can take many different forms. And I think that's where the big advances are unlocked from that cultural shift of saying, I'm innovating the technology and I want to take it end to end to actually deliver something that's enterprise grade. So I agree, it's really a big cultural piece.
I guess it's always, comes down to culture at the end of the day. And this is actually my last question, but how do we bridge enterprise and research for the next perfect world? So, maybe looking ahead in the next 5 years, is it going to be talent? Is it going to be infrastructure? Is it going to be policy? What is going to be the most critical piece? And in some ways, I guess you answered that culture is very important, but what will be that, secret, not secret at this point, a key piece that really bridges academia or research and enterprise?
I think the talent means kind of model or like a formula, and infrastructure means June, like the chip and hardware, and like the international, like a corporation means like the kind of, to me, means like a diversity. And actually, at first I had this tie when I came here, and because of the atmosphere, it's not that like, so I just untied it. But I got this one in Amsterdam, and this is the paintings from the Escher, which is very similar to my my major, complex science, because as you see here, it has like a fishes and ships there, but when you see this tie like a far away, it looks like a sea. That means it accepts kind of diversity in this piece, and it makes kind of the emergent like a result, like what we are doing, like the machine learning and deep neural network. And in this case, I think we should admit that we are all different, and then we should try to understand the others, like a language. So I think the admittance and then like a diversity is key to collaborate each other.
Yeah, so the question is about, the next wave and the future of how these two can come together to...
Yes, so looking ahead, what's going to be the most important piece?
Yeah, I think really this is maybe a very kind of researcher, also entrepreneurial kind of take to it, but I think it's really asking the right questions, identifying the impactful opportunities and use cases that's going to make the biggest difference, because the world is very, very big, very, very diverse. We all of us here just have one small slice of it that we're seeing, and there are so many different ways that technology has had impact in the past, but could have impact in the future. And I think, thinking really optimistically about what is going to make a difference for the people in this world and their health and our society, and posing the right questions and, hopefully optimistically going for those positive impact cases, I think is hopefully where we'll see the greatest difference made.
Yeah, I just want to add one comment. Even though we are developing like an AI, from the mathematical view, but I think the human intuition is, much important, and then human intuition is first, then just model, because you know already the answer than AI.
Oh, wow, that is a very strong and profound philosophical ending to this night. Thank you to all the exceptional panelists. Yes.